When the sequester with deep automatic cuts in defense and domestic spending was first proposed, it was considered so unthinkable that the two parties would really have no choice but to come to a budget deal. The White House was particularly betting that to protect the defense budget, Republican defense hawks would be willing to accept new tax revenue. They bet wrong. The no new tax crowd, or more to the point, the no new tax pledge, was a lot stronger than even the everything for defense crowd. 2 years later, the sequester spending levels have become the new normal for defense. So what does that mean? First, there is room to cut the defense budget, if it is done rationally. The Pentagon and defense hawks keep talking about $500 billion in cuts over the next 10 years. But it is important to remember that that number, as large as it is from the administration's projected spending level, its Christmas list. What they don't say is that in the decade after the September 11th attacks, the Pentagon got everything and more than it asked for. From 2001 to 2010, baseline defense spending, not counting the cost of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, rose 45% in real terms to $528 billion. For 2013, with the sequester, that base budget is around $498 billion. And if the sequester goes into effect again this year, they will have to cut another $21 billion from current spending. These cuts are no deeper than they were after the end of previous wars. And with withdrawal from Iraq and the drawdown in Afghanistan, this is certainly the right time for a reevaluation of strategic priorities and the imposition, finally, of some rational spending discipline. And so, the second thing to know, unfortunately, is that the process is anything but rational. This is a yearly game of political brinkmanship, and it demands yearly cuts. Many of the most sensible savings, including shutting bases and reducing the size of the uniformed or civilian workforces, take time to come online. If anything, they may cost more in the short term. And then there are the politics of Washington. The defense budget has always been captive to special interests and pandering, and the sequester has made it even more dysfunctional. Republicans and some Democrats on the Hill have blocked some of the most needed reforms. The House 2014 authorization bill, for example, ignored the near certainty of another round of sequester cuts, giving the Pentagon $526.6 billion in base spending. It also opposes even modest increases in the healthcare fees and co-pays. It gives the troops a 1.8% pay raise. The Pentagon wanted only 1%. And it prohibits the Pentagon from, quote, proposing, planning, or initiating another round of base closings. The third thing to know is that the White House has done nothing to frame a healthy debate on this. Sticking with a losing just say no strategy, it has continued to make budget requests at pre-sequester levels while warning that the sky will fall if the cuts go through. That has made it far easier for the services to continue with their own denial and avoid making the tough choices that are essential to avoid real damage and promote rational reform. So is anyone ready to get beyond denial? Defense Secretary Hagel says many of the right things about reducing spiraling healthcare costs and bloated overhead. The services, however, continue to push back, and the president has been mute. They have several chances in coming months to start getting it closer to right, with the next budget request and the quadrennial defense review. Will they get it together by then? I hope so, but politics and inertia make it unlikely.